Hello everyone, thank you for tuning into my channel. This is Azrael, and today we are going to be talking about Tulpas, Egregores, Golems, Servitors, and how to create them. Okay? Okay, you guys are going to have just as many different interpretations and takes on what these thought forms are, just as probably more so than they have names, okay? So let's start from the top. Tulpas. Well, tulpa, the word tulpa is actually a Tibetan word to basically make manifest. Okay, there is a very popular online movement today of people who create tulpas. Now, most of these people are not magicians. Um, they basically, first of all, a tulpa was once supposed to be created by intense meditation. Okay, well, modern people who call themselves tulpamancers found a way around of the intense meditation, and it's very ingenious actually if you want to get technical because, and I'm not being insulting when I say this, the technique is so easy, children do it. Okay, you see, when a child creates an imaginary friend, the child will give it a name, it gives it a form, what it would look like, and they talk to it and they answer back for it. Okay, this is it. Now, what happens is over weeks and weeks of constantly talking to the tulpa or your imaginary friend um, and answering back for it, it gets so much energy, it gets a mind of its own. That simple. So a lot of these imaginary friends that little kids talk to, it's talking back to them, and sometimes maybe even manifesting outside of the child and outside of the adult tulpamancer to actually see it, quite literally. Now, I really wish tulpamancers would actually call themselves more like a tulpa magician or a tulpa creator, because mancy, actually the root word mancy means to divine. So unless you're practicing divination with your tulpa, you're not a tulpamancer technically, from the definition of the word. But words change, words get different meanings over time. So whatever. But that's just how you make a tulpa. You sit down, you give it a name, and you give it form. You talk to it hours on end every day, and it gets enough energy to where it starts to talk back. That simple. And it's also said that tulpas have more of a personality, more of a free will than other thought forms that magicians create, such as servitors or golems. Uh, And actually, that's actually kind of splitting hairs, because when a magician creates a supernatural thought form to aid them in their magic or astral travel, get a job, or whatever they create it for, you can give it as much uh, personality and free will as you see fit. So in the end, and even if you don't, uh, the longer you let a servitor or a golem or egregore, whatever you want to call them, as they progress, they become more intelligent. Okay, uh, and people say egregores are usually create a thought form created by a group of people. Again, that's kind of splitting hairs. You can the names are basically interchangeable at this point. Okay, it is true that you can actually summon Santa Claus. Yep, you can summon the archetype or thought form of St. Nicholas to be more giving. You could summon Ariel, the Little Mermaid, to become a better swimmer, for example. Well, this is going to be discussed in other videos called pop culture magic, where new magicians are using symbolism from pop culture to perform magic. So, um, now the servitor is usually an automaton. You don't want your thought form thinking too much because you don't want it to turn against you. For example, if and again, that's another warning. Tulpas can do the same thing, regardless of what tulpamancers say. Uh, I'm sorry, thousands and thousands of years, these things have been created by trained monks, and thousands of years of warnings are not overturned because it don't feel right to you, because your tulpa never turned against you or got away from you or whatever. It can happen. Now, it usually happens with people who are ungrounded. If you have low self-esteem, or if you have a history of or any kind of mental disorder like schizophrenia or something like that, you don't want to try to summon spirits, and you don't want to try uh, to create them unless you're grounded, because sometimes your imagination can get away from you. Now, this being said, that's one reason why magicians, the major difference to me, what is the difference between a egregor, golem, servitor, and a tulpa, is that most people who create tulpas nowadays create them for a specific reason, which is companionship. And they get very attached to them, so they have no intention to dissolve them or destroy this thought form. Okay, because to them this is now a living creature, and it would be immoral to do so. Now, with the created servitor, what these are actually are is basically a version of an astral android with artificial intelligence. Okay, it's you can think it's alive, and it can act like it's alive, but to me it's a thought form, and because of the potential dangers of letting your thought form run amok, most magicians give a deadline that if after they complete the action that they were summoned for or created for, they are ritually destroyed, or if they do not perform it, don't uh, you know complete their task within a lot of time, they're dissolved. You see, a good example of what I mean by this is that here you see you get these reports of monsters that are seen throughout the world. Now, I'm not saying, for example, Bigfoot. Yeah, he may or may not exist. Okay, but if he did exist, at least he would fit in a taxonomic class. It would be a primate, right? So things that have been seen, such as the Jersey Devil, uh, the Lizard Man of South Carolina, for example, things that do not fit in a taxonomic class. Uh, Other things like maybe winged horses that just could not have evolved naturally. These are thought forms that were never dissolved, or that they're more likely anyway that some magician created, say, the Jersey Devil kind of like creature, and never dissolved it or got away. And now it makes an appearance every now and then to make people think about it, and which basically would give it energy. Okay. So yeah, so monsters and some hauntings too. Some hauntings, if you haven't noticed it, every single state in the United States has a crybaby bridge where if you go to the bridge, the baby cries. Or there's always a beautiful young lady who's going to or coming from prom who received a very bad fate and is now hitchhiking. Okay, I'm not saying that there's not true ghosts that do that. I'm also saying that because the urban legend is so popular and it's given an explanation, now you have a lot of thought forms doing the same thing. So, well, moving on. So yes, thought forms can be created by individuals or groups of people. And the ones that are created by groups of people, understand that many minds went to create that. So it might not be unlike your servitor that you create and feed, or a tulpa, whatever. The ones that were created by the people, you should treat them like separate entities, like natural occurring spirits, because they have a mind of their own. And why am I going to help you? What's in it for me? So you're going to, if you summon, say, a thought form created by somebody else, or groups of people, you might have to make a pact with it. Like, hey, I'll feed you if you do this, blah 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 blah. It's whatever. Now, one of the techniques I'm going to teach you to create a thought form is going to be through ritual magic, coming up either in this video or the next, depending on how long this goes. But I already told you how to create a tulpa, and it's really that easy, But one of the things that actually worry me by people who are creating tulpas is that, sadly, whenever an occult practice gets learned by the masses, it gets simplified and simplified, and sometimes overly simplified. and that can be dangerous. Now, see, one of the things, if you go looking through all these little Tulpa videos that are on YouTube or on some other website, almost none of them, at least me, I've never found any of them adding protection. That's something you do when you do any magic rite. You do a banishment, get rid of any energy that can cause problems, and then you cast protection so anything could not come back and cause problems. So nobody seems to be adding protection. See, the reason why I give you a warning, and from somebody who has handled negative spirits, summoned negative spirits, or demons, whatever you want to call them. Side note, a demon or daemon can be referred to as any spirit. It does not mean that it's evil. Okay, it's just modern Christian culture calls demons anything that's negative, but quite literally, a daemon was any spirit, good or bad. It was just a word for spirit for the most part. But anyway, back to what I'm saying. I can tell you right now, let's say you create a thought form, you didn't do any banishment. Now, spirits are all over the place, some of them positive, some of them negative, but a lot of them, what they want that energy. And if you try to create a thought form without doing a banishment or adding protection, there is a good possibility that some spirit is going to intercept that energy that you are using to create a tulpa and feed off it and take the shape of that creature. So while you sit there and think that you have a thought form that you created and is doing your bidding or being friendly to you for more energy, you might have a negative spirit leeching off your energy, pretending to be your thought form, because that thought form that spirit intercepted your energy and stopped that thought form from ever forming, because they took that energy and now they have a link to you. That as long as what a lot of negative spirits do in a lot of hauntings, you know, the non-thought form, the spirit or the evil spirit that, you know, becomes the friend of the little kid with the imaginary friend, turns negative over time and causes havoc. Okay, so this is something that you need to take into consideration. So well, anyway, I've covered for the most part the basics of tulpa or the concepts of tulpas. And again, in either right now or in the next video, I'm going to teach you how to create one magically. But one thing you also need to learn when you learn this technique is that this technique that was taught to me has been modified from a Kabbalistic ritual. You know, because this ritual is because I am a Kabbalistic practitioner of practical Kabbalah. The names of the Jewish God are invoked. You don't have to use those names, especially if you're not a Christian or Jew. You can use your own pantheon of gods, or you don't even have to use a god to create this magical thought form. Just putting it out there, because the next video will be linked to this, but I just want it to be solely focused on the ritual. Okay. And that's why I'm trying to get everything out right now to tell you what they do. Now, when a person creates a magical servitor, they tend to have a place to house it. And usually, of course, you know, it's sometimes a thing of convenience, you know, an item laying around the house, or sometimes it's something that looks like or represents. For example, you can, I like to make them in jars. You know, I'll surf online or draw a picture or find something that would look like my servitor that I'm going to create and wrap it around the jar. You know, then I have a nice little empty space to put in the sigil and all that kind of stuff, which we're going to go over. Okay, so all thought forms are basically different degrees of intelligence and purpose. Tulpas usually are created almost on a permanent basis or a long-term basis because they are created by people who are looking for not necessarily a magical practice, just companionship, really. And the other ones are created servitors, egregores, golems. They're created for a specific purpose and are usually dissolved within a month or 2 months. There are servitors that are created for the long term, you know, quite literally years. But again, it's up to you. It's up to the practitioner. And they're also created for, like, again, for just about anything. But I don't believe in the third fold law. I'm an old practitioner of magic the old ways, long before that came about. Okay, but you are still responsible for what you create and what it does. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody doing anything stupid, against somebody. You could create a servitor for defense, or I'm just talking about this because I trying to be complete. You could create them to haunt houses. I knew a guy that did that for a girl that he liked, and he put it out there knowing that, yeah, he knows about spirits and all that kind of stuff. So when the haunting started happening, guess who she asked, and guess who came out and acted like the big shot and sent the spirit away? All wink, wink. Right? Now, again, I'm not encouraging people to do stuff like that, but quite literally, just to be well-rounded, you could do anything with these things. These are not limited to finding a new job and stuff. Again, you can create, like I said, for a companion to come visit you in the middle of the night in your dreams, or pull you right out into an astral projection. You name it. Okay. All right. Thank you for listening. And in the next video, we're going to, or it might be connected to this one, I haven't decided yet. We're going to do the ritual. Thank you, and take care.